welcome to Build for Health. I'm Pete Wright. I'm here with Coach Srdjan, and today we're talking about rest. Training is the stimulus. It isn't the adaptation. Those are words that I've heard around workplace. You don't get stronger in the gym. You get stronger in the 22 hours after you're in the gym, after you leave it, and only if those hours cooperate. And are you doing all the things that you need to do to make those hours cooperate with you? The problem is that we genuinely treat those hours as like leftover time. We see it in the words we use: workout, rest day, off day, recovery day. Every one of those words describes an absence. So today we're going to talk about what's actually happening in that absence, why the phrase rest day covers several different jobs that finish at different times, and how to tell which one you actually need. And it starts with occupational therapy. I bet you didn't see that coming. Well, you did, because I told you about it. So I ran across, hi, Srdjan, by the way. Hi. I'm so excited. I just want to jump right in. I ran across a study for other work that I do, and it was published in the Journey of Occupational Health Psychology. It was a study by Sonnentag and Fritz. That's Sabine Sonnentag from University of Konstanz and Charlotte Fritz from Bowling Green State University. And they were doing a study on mood regulation across job stress recovery. So they wanted to know if they could come up with a questionnaire that would serve as a measuring stick for how people unwind after they are stressed, and in this case, stressed at work. And I think, to me, it struck me as really interesting. So I'll beg your patience while I talk about why this was interesting to me, and then you could talk about how it applies to the workout stuff, because this is all occupational therapy research that has nothing on the surface to do with training, but I think we're going to make it feel like it was written for the training life.
Okay.
What they discovered, the puzzle that got them here is, to me, what the interesting part is. These researchers kept finding that hours off did not predict who came back restored. Right? Two people take the same weekend. One comes back just fine and ready to go, and another one comes back completely wrecked. So the question for these researchers was not, does rest help? It's, what is the active ingredient to productive rest? And this is where I think it makes, it has just really landed hard for me. They discover that people need one of four different types of rest. These are not fungible. You don't swap one out for another. Depending on how you are stressed determines the kind of relaxation you need. So, number one, psychological detachment. That says you are mentally off. You're turned off. The thing that you were stressed about has no access to you. You're not thinking about work. You're doing something that is distracting from your effort at work, detached from work. Number two, relaxation. It's a tricky word. Low activation, low demand. It is pleasant. Mastery. Mastery is defined as challenge and learning. So you're taking your attention that was pointed at work and you are pointing it at something else. And control. If you spend all day being told what to do, then you need to have a sense of relaxation that is defined by you being in control. You get to decide how your time gets spent, okay? The interesting thing is that, detachment and relaxation, right? Those are pretty predictable, right? If I'm stressed, I go home, I want to relax. I want to detach. Yeah. What was fascinating that they found out is that many, many people need a more complicated set of rest elements that sometimes just laying on the couch, just going to watch movies, just, hanging out and eating all the time does not make for a restful return to stress. That in fact, they need to change the way their brain is oriented to the world. And it does not mean stillness. It means you are active. You're just doing something different. So mastery, for example, is a complicated one because rest, like I said, it's not defined as standing still. Something hard can count as rest as long as it isn't the same hard thing that flattened you in the first place at work, right? You're working on a really stressful project. At the end of the day, you want to go home and you want to demonstrate that you are mastering something else. Woodworking. That always seems like a go-to. My neighbor loves woodworking when he's an artist with this stuff. That is a restful state for him. This was the other piece that came out of the research. These rest categories do not substitute for each other. It's the whole idea. You can rest all weekend in a way that never actually touches on what drained you in the first place, right? So if you aren't doing the right kind of rest, then it doesn't mean you're not resting enough. It means that you've mismatched your rest to what you were stressed about in the first place. If you are out of control at work, your rest should include an activity that puts you in control at home, which I think is genuinely kinder to ourselves if we think about that. Again, not exercise science. But as I was working out the other day, it occurred to me that this research, I think, applies. We're essentially borrowing a very well-validated model and pointing it at the gym, right? So I have 3 small studies. I've been talking too much already, but I have 3 small studies. This is all set up, man. It's all set up. This is good stuff. All of these studies lean the same way, and they're not huge. In the Annals of Internal Medicine, we have a study about 10 overweight adults. They were all housed in a metabolic ward, a research unit where participants live for the duration and every calorie in and out is measured by staff. Every person did the same conditions in this nutrition research, right? So it is a controlled study. They had the same caloric restriction, 14 days, and they would have 8.5 hours of sleep opportunity, sleep opportunity versus 5.5. Total weight loss, about 3 kilograms both times. No real meaningful difference. Total fat loss, 1.5 or 1.4 kilograms on good sleep, 0.6 on short sleep. Fat-free mass loss, 1.6 on good sleep, 2.4 on short sleep. Fat-free mass is everything, obviously, that isn't fat. Muscle, bone, water, organs. Yeah. Without good sleep, they lost almost double the wrong kind of weight to lose because they weren't sleeping enough. Okay, study 2. 10 young, healthy men, 1 week of sleeping under 5 hours a night. Testosterone significantly lower than when rested. Right? This was published as a research letter, not a actual journal publication or a full paper, but it was peer-reviewed. Testosterone is, as we've talked about many times before, it's one of the things that does the actual building. It's not about virility. This is like construction crew stuff. And people these 10 young, healthy men sleeping under 5 hours a night for a week had significantly lower testosterone than when they were rested. Study 3, 11 Stanford varsity men's basketball players. Sleep pushed toward 10 hours a night for 5 to 7 weeks. Sprint times, 16.2 down to 15.5 seconds. Free throws, 9%. Three-pointers, 9.2%. Every single player improved on increased sleep. Every player on every measure that they tested. That is awesome because I like sleep. This is obviously a pile of small studies leaning in the same direction. It's not, it's not one giant validated study. Just saying it out loud on a podcast does not make it universal truth, but it is indicative, and I find that fascinating. So I throw all of that at you and I count on you to turn it into gym speak. How does this kind of stuff influence the way you approach guiding, rest, and recuperation for training? Go.
Well, all that makes sense. Everything that you said. And I was thinking about how I recover. What do I do on my days off when I'm just stressed at work and I just don't want to be here and I need to get away from everything? And you're right. I don't just go home and sit and just do nothing and relax. I actually don't feel really that much rested when I come back. I do other things away from the gym that has nothing to do with lifting weights, with the gym. I'm not at the gym. I'm far away from the gym. I'm doing other things that I enjoy, that I love, right? I'll go swimming. I'll go to the beach. Like now that it's summer, it's nice. I'll go to the lake. I'll go for a hike. I'll, bike ride. Something active. It has to be something active and doing something, but nothing to do with weights, not lifting, staying away from the gym. And I actually do feel much better. So here I'm always like telling people what to do and all that stuff. And sometimes I just don't want to do anything, and it does help. I do come back a lot more rested and I'm like, now I'm ready to go and tackle this again. So all that, it does make sense. I actually feel a lot better when I do that and a lot more rested than if I just stay home and just sit and lay down and, watch TV, watch movies, whatever, all that stuff. Yeah, I enjoy that stuff too, but it's not me. I feel like I need to be a little bit productive, do something, but I don't want anything to do with the gym.
Yeah. So walk me through what's actually happening after the session. So I finish a hard workout and I walk out the door. What's going on in my body?
So the workout might be finished, when you leave the gym, but your body is really just beginning to that recovery process. So during the hard lifting session, you used all the stored energy, you fatigued your muscles and nervous system, and you've given your muscle now reason to adapt today. So during the first several hours after training, like your body starts restoring energy and repairing the muscle tissue that was stressed during the workout. So this is where nutrition becomes important. Carbohydrates helps replenish glycogen, which is stored carbohydrate in your muscle that you use as fuel, while protein provides amino acids that your body can use to repair and build the muscle tissue. Now, the muscle protein synthesis, basically the process of building a new muscle protein, increases after resistance training and can remain elevated well into that recovery period. So over the next 24 to, I would say, 48 hours, the repair and the adaptation process continues. And you may, also feel sore during this period, but soreness isn't like a perfect measurement of recovery. You can still be recovering without being sore. And I tell this people all the time. Being extremely sore doesn't necessarily mean you had actually a better workout.
Yeah.
So for me, it's so hard to feel sore all the time. There's a lot of times I get a great workout, but I'm not that sore the next few days. Now, the important thing is that you don't usually build the muscle during the workout. Always people think that the workout gives your body the reason to build it. Now, the recovery period is when your body does much of the rebuilding and adapting during that rest period. So, and not everything is recovering at the same speed.
Okay.
So that's important to know. And
like muscle systems, like
overlook.
big muscle, small muscle kind of thing?
Yeah, just because your muscles are sore, or they aren't sore anymore, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is completely recovered.
Right.
Different systems can recover at the different speeds. Like your energy store may recover fairly quickly if you're eating enough, especially carbohydrates. And muscle soreness might disappear within a day or two, or it might last longer after like unfamiliar workout, or after you took a 2 week off or 3 week off, or you're coming back from a vacation. So also connective tissues like tendons also respond differently from muscles.
Sure.
So that's why, I won't judge recovery based on just one thing. Someone might say, well, I'm not sore, I'm so completely recovered. But, how does your warm-up feel? How is your strength? Right. Like when you start lifting, do you still feel those muscles? And then how is your sleep? And now they're lifting, does everything feel like unusually, like really heavy?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So let's talk about, let's transition to sleep then, because sleep is, obviously it's one of those, last 3 studies that we talked about were all related to sleep. Yeah. I'm fascinated by sleep and what happens when I'm asleep, mostly because I'm a guy who's had trouble with sleep before, and figuring out how to get to sleep, how to stay asleep. I'm always like, I'm one of those people who just starts spinning when I'm not sleeping. And I know I should be sleeping because I'm spinning about all the things that my body isn't doing that it should. Like my brain is unhealthy. My body's not flushing all the toxins. What about the free radicals, man? So I look at this and I think, how do you approach it when somebody comes to you and says, you have a whole bunch of recovery levers to pull. How important is the sleep lever to helping you in the gym?
Oh, sleep would be like the first one, the very high on my list. It's also one of the least exciting answers, because people would rather hear about, maybe supplements or cold plunge or, some expensive recovery devices. But if someone's constantly sleeping like 5 hours a night, I wouldn't expect like a crazy 3,000, 5,000 recovery machine to somehow make up for that.
Yeah.
Sleep affects much more, than whether you feel tired. It's important for your brain and nervous system, immune function, hormone regulation, appetite, decision-making, physical performance, everything. So the research on sleep loss also shows that insufficient sleep can negatively affect measures of strength and power, muscular endurance, neuromuscular functions. So it's very important. It's important because it affects everything else that you're trying to do. If you're exhausted, your workout might suffer. You probably get less active throughout the day. Your food choices may get worse. Your motivation goes down. You may rely heavily on caffeine, just to get through the day. And, I'm guilty of that somehow.
I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
I admit. So, improving sleep can create like benefits in several different areas at the same time.
And that's not, how do you approach, I come to you and I say, just my biggest problem is I can't sleep. Do you have an answer? Do you have a suggestion? Well, it's not really, knowing that you're not the sleep doctor.
That's true. Not everyone can get that perfect 8 hours of sleep, of 10 hours of sleep. So if we can't improve, if I can't improve their sleep right away, then I would look at what we can actually control. Maybe we'd reduce like their training volume, and maybe they don't need like 6 days in the gym. Maybe workouts become a little less shorter. We can also make sure that, they're eating enough protein and calories and stay hydrated. So in other words, like if you can't increase someone's recovery capacity, then you may have to decrease the amount that they need to recover from.
Yeah.
So, that's really important. Training should fit someone's life instead of, expecting their entire life to fit their training program. It doesn't always work that way.
But also, fair assessment to say that, when you get into a regular training program, your sleep will benefit from that, right? At the end of a day, when I get home after a good session, I am more tired and I don't have to climb as high of a mountain to get in bed and actually find myself asleep.
Yeah, I feel that way too, but I know some people like to do their workouts in the morning because they energize them. and they feel ready to go. So I'm like, okay, so that's how whatever works
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
you, and that's how people decide, should they, work out in the morning, or do they actually enjoy working more in the evening? In the morning, I have more energy, and I like doing my workouts in the morning,
Yeah.
possibly before 3 p.m., like in the afternoon, but everything after, just like now, I feel like I don't have the same
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
And that can also sleep can dictate sometimes that if I do get a good night's sleep, I feel good all day.
Yeah.
And I feel like, what, I can actually go and do a workout at 4 or 5
Right.
p.m. So it does make a huge difference.
I want to jump around a little bit. Let's talk about the recovery that you can just throw money at. Right, you are known to indulge in a cold plunge every now and again. I mean, what?
Oh,
yeah,
I love
let's talk about what the cold plunge and their ilk. I don't even know what else would be in that category. So walk me through a little bit about what therapeutic services you use. Massage, cold plunge.
Yeah. The cold plunge I do a lot because they can reduce the soreness and improve how recovered somebody might feel in certain situations. That's valuable. So it's like part of the reason your muscles grow is because training creates these signals that tell your body, okay, we need to adapt to this. Now, research they found that repetitive cold water, like if you do plunging after lifting, can actually reduce that muscle growth. And some analysis have also found that found smaller strength adaptations after. So I don't really do the cold plunges right after my workouts. I wait about 6 to 8 hours. There was research that was done with the athletes, and they said that after 6 to 8 hours, it's more beneficial to do a cold plunge. But I like to do them before my workouts, and I found that was actually really helpful. I do get a lot better workouts. I feel less sore.
Wait a minute, aren't you more
I got a
tight?
better blood flow and everything. So
isn't that riskier?
No, you would think that. But no, it takes even that little bit of soreness away, because it reduces the soreness. So anything that's still a little bit sore after the cold plunge, I feel great.
Okay. All right. First of all, that's crazy. But the other, you said something that I think is really important, because my mental model of a cold plunge is that it is designed for injury, right? To stave off injury. And
yeah, it can help with that too. Yes.
So, but help with that too. Like, that's not the primary reason you cold plunge. Because I've watched football movies, man. Like, I see people they get pummeled on the field and they go in for a cold plunge. That's what you do in a football movie.
Yeah, they do. I know you say that all the time, but now with the athletes, they do that like before, but like not right after the workouts. I mean, depending, like some athletes, they'll do it right after their training, because maybe tomorrow they have a big race and they're not worried about their muscle hypertrophy. Like, they want to just be less sore and be able to be ready to go. And they don't want to feel any kind of soreness next day. Yeah. So they'll jump into a cold plunge and it will take that away, and they'll feel much better. And that's the reason why I actually do it. And I feel like I even sleep better at those nights, like on those days when I do cold plunges.
Okay. What else besides cold plunge? What else on the market, like in the recuperation market, do you feel comfortable throwing money at to help you rest and recover?
See, tell you the truth, like the money that I really spend, the most money I spend is on food, like organic food, the good food, like a good healthy proteins, like that's what I spend my money on. Like, it's not like things like massage saunas, like have these massage guns and all these other recovery tools can actually can absolutely make you feel great, much better, and there's nothing wrong with using them. And if you enjoy them and you can afford them, and they're great, but I wouldn't put them in the category of, I would put them in the category of extra, not like really necessary. That's what you need. What you really need is really good organic food, good mattress so you can have a good night's sleep, relax, I spend money the other day on the pillow because it helps me sleep. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I can get get into those deep sleeps. That's what actually helps me. All this, massaging, sauna, cold plunges, like none of it will actually make it better. Like if I don't get my sleep, when somebody's sleeping, my clients like sleeping 5 hours, eating poorly, and then, worrying about whether they need like 2,000 recovery devices. And, so get the big things right first, like sleep, nutrition, that's what's the probably most important things.
I want to wrap up with this, a question that I have found in talking to my own friends who do not train and don't have the benefit of a trainer, which is that they feel like it is way too easy to overtrain. That when they feel sore from training, not from injury, that they feel like it takes, they have to take more time off, and so they never get into a routine. And so I kind of want you to address that issue of how hard it is or easy to overtrain.
So the thing about taking the time off doesn't automatically mean that you're going to come back stronger.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have taken some time off because they feel they're overtrained, and they take some time off and they come stronger and all that stuff. And people sometimes think that if they're tired, taking that entire week off means they're going to turn into a Superman, and because of all the fatigue has disappeared.
Yeah.
But the strength is also like a skill. You're practicing movements, coordinating your nervous system, and staying accustomed to that, handling those heavy weights. So completely removing this whole stimulus can temporarily make someone feel a little rusty, when they return.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. It doesn't mean the rest weeks are bad. If someone generally needs the time away, physically or mentally, then taking a week off isn't going to like raise the years of progress, all that you made. But I don't think anyone, needs a mandatory full week with absolute no lifting every 4, 6, or maybe 8 weeks after lifting. So deloading can simply means, turning the volume down instead of turning the training completely off and taking the whole week or 2 weeks off. Maybe you normally do, 4 sets. Maybe you do 2 or 3. Maybe you normally train, close to the failure. Now you can kind of stop several reps earlier. Maybe you reduce the weight slightly, but you keep moving and practicing these exercises. But, and you dramatically reduce how much fatigue you're getting in. So that's kind of what I would do sometimes if I feel like overtrained. Sometimes I'll just tone it down.
Yeah.
Change my training a little bit. I wouldn't like completely stop. So
yeah, so there was the last study that I didn't bring up, and I think I should because it's an interesting counterexample but it also describes exactly what you're talking about, right? Like this was a study that took 39 trained lifters across a 9-week program, and they were doing 90 sets a week, right? That's pretty brutal. That's a lot of training, and
yes.
And so then half of those people took a full week off completely right in the middle. The other half trained straight through. In terms of muscle growth, just like sheer size, it was about the same for both groups. The strength, the straight through group did better, right? In all the testing, both 1 rep max and in isometric testing, there was a cleaner strength measure, for those who trained straight through. The week off group reported more soreness, less motivation, described coming back and feeling out of practice rather than refreshed. And when asked if they felt they needed a break after 9 weeks of the hardest training of their lives, almost nobody said yes. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there are a couple of interesting things in there. Like in this study, deloading was total cessation. Like they did not lift a single heavy thing. And what I'm hearing you say is nobody recommends that. That's an artificial thing for the study to look at extremes and see how that feels. And also that, we have this other stack of evidence that says recovery is not cessation of activity, that recovery is cessation of that activity and actually turning on a different activity to stay moving and stay active, even if you deload a little bit on the actual workouts. Is that a fair sort of way to think about what it means to rest related to the gym?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that 100%.
I just can't stop. Like I go back to that initial study, the occupational Sonnentag and Fritz questionnaire, just this idea of saying detachment is not thinking about training, but it's going out and getting on a bike. That relaxation is not easy cardio that actually turns into a workout. It's going out and going for a good hike. That mastery is like learning to play the guitar or a language or whatever. That control is a rest day that I get to do something really completely different. Those things I think are going to help me reframe how I rest and not to be afraid of soreness.
Yeah, I mean, people need to realize that recovery isn't like something separate from training. Recovery is part of that training. You go into the gym and all that stuff. So the goal is to give your body enough of training stimulus to improve, and then enough recovery to actually make that improvement happen. It's all part of that training. It's you can't do one and not focus on the other one and expect the results. It is not going to happen. So you really have to think about that whole 24 hours from when you train and then what you do after training, and then sleep and everything else. It can all affect the way your body works. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Well, thank you for indulging me my occupational therapy research today. I hope somebody listening to this who has their day job and is actually learned something about their own ability to de-stress when they're not at work too. It's not just at the gym. This stuff was really impactful to me. I think it's fascinating. Links in the show notes. There's actually one of the researchers put the entire paper for free on their website. So I'll put a link to that so you can actually download it. If you're into academic journal reading, maybe you'll find that interesting. Otherwise, links to Elevate Fitness PDX if you want to work with any of the trainers at Elevate Fitness, and you want to just see Srdjan in action. You could just drop by and peer in a window and see what goes on. We'd love to have you there. Check out all the links in the show notes. So glad you joined us today. If you've got questions about training or recovery or rest, recuperation, or how to make strength work in your life, we want to hear them. Just again, in those show notes, there's a link that says you can ask a question, and you can send that right in. We'll answer it on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe and share. This is how we grow stronger together. Thanks for listening to Build for Health, and we'll catch you next week in the gym.